Welcome back to this week's episode of the Goonery. We are going to be recapping just the absolute disappointment that was last Thursday with the Chicago Bears and the Commanders. A 12-7 loss at home on Thursday Night Football. It's been almost a week now, and I still don't think it could have gone worse in any scenario. I don't know about you, Brandon.
I was the main guy on this show last week that was saying that I don't think there's going to be a low-scoring game. I think there's going to be a game where people are going to shock the Bears and Commanders are going to shock some people, and they was actually going to put up a good game. When you have Carson Wentz on the Commanders, you already know that there's not going to be a lot of points scored. I know he has some injuries he's going through right now, but I just don't think he's that good of a quarterback. And truth be told, it was a lot of the receivers that was letting him down too. So it goes both ways, and it made the Chicago Bears defense look like it was 2018 again. So that's also not a good sign either. But going to the Bears side, that was the closest I came to having an actual breakdown during that game, just watching that game. And a lot of it was not for the fact that the Bears didn't execute, because that's been a theme all year. It's something that we've expected. And although we did probably think that Justin Fields was going to take that next step after the fact, but I think what made me more upset was seeing how much throughout the game Fields was getting absolutely battered. And you look at the offensive line, the strong parts of the line, and Tevin Jenkins has been undoubtedly the best offensive lineman on that team.
Easily.
But then you look at everybody else, and I say everybody else because it makes me sad, because I was one of the main guys that said, yo, Braxton Jones, I feel like we have a cornerstone at left tackle. He played the worst game of his career, and I really, really do not want to get on him because he is a fifth-round rookie. And truthfully, these little growing pains were going to happen regardless. And he's coming off a short week. That Sunday to Thursday, there are some players that have to get used to that. So to hold that against them too much, that's not fair to him.
But that's good.
But what is the excuse for everybody else? What is the excuse for Lucas Patrick? What's the excuse for Sam Mustipher? And it's funny to me that there was discussion. According to Brad Biggs, Luke Getty talked about there may be a reshuffling off the offensive line. They're seeing what combinations are going to work. I get it's a short week, but was there really conversations about reshuffling the offensive line? I don't know. And maybe, just maybe, it's because of it's a short week. But all I know is this. If on Monday against New England, if we do not see a reshuffling of the offensive line in some form or fashion, I am going to be extremely upset to the point where I am not going to watch this game on Monday. I have grown past the point that if it's not a nationally televised game, that the Bears will not see my eyes at all for the rest of the season, because it sounds like to me that they are really mailing this thing in. And it's sad because I know Ryan Poles did not have a lot to work with in terms of draft picks, money, what have you. But I can't believe I have to feed into this story that he did not do enough to protect his franchise quarterback. But this is exactly where we are, from the offensive line to who he drafted in Fields Jones, who made the critical mistake in the game, and then drafting offensive linemen in the 5th round when one is starting and the rest of the guys are just bench warmers or on the practice squad. This is a failure. This is a failure. I get it. You don't have the resources to retool this whole thing, but the problem is that you still did not do the correct things, drafting-wise and free agent-wise. And now we're seeing that's being reflected upon the depth chart on this team, because you cannot tell me that this offensive line combination was going to be, resemblant of a NFL offensive line. You can't convince anybody of that, but here's where we are.
And my thing with the offensive line is I get you want to keep guys fresh. I understand you want to keep guys in and out, keep their legs fresh as much as possible. But why is Tevin Jenkins coming out as often as he is? It makes no fucking sense that he's sitting out drives at a time when he's been easily the best offensive lineman on this team this entire year. I don't get it. I understand he's coming off a serious injury. I get that, and that probably has something to do with it, and that this year means nothing. We've all come to terms with the fact that this year means absolutely nothing. And I know what we said beginning of the year, that all this year matters for is Justin Fields' development and him taking those next step forward. But apparently the Bears don't even give a shit about that either, because it's an abomination. They lost a game where the Washington Commanders had 227 total yards of offense. Carson Wentz threw for under 100 yards with 22 passing attempts. That's the only time Justin Fields will probably outthrow someone yardage-wise this entire year.
Yep.
And he still didn't even crack 200 yards. You can't lose games with that when your defense plays like that.
Mhm.
And you can't even blame the rushing attack. You can't. I mean, Fields did what he had to. I will say, when it came to using his legs, I know Fields ripped off one long run, but he looked more comfortable in the pocket, I thought, on Thursday night at times than he has all year. He wasn't as he didn't have as happy a feet in the pocket trying to scramble right away. He stood in there, took a few hits. I just feel like we're rehashing the same conversation week in and week out on this show. And it sucks because it doesn't make for an interesting conversation between us. It doesn't make for an interesting conversation for whoever is listening to this, because we have to sound like broken records at this point. But when it comes to the offense, I guess a positive that came out of this game was Amir Smith-Marset being cut this week. Now, he's not the only reason they've lost these past two games, but he has played a pretty big role in that. And I hate to say it, but if he wasn't the 23-year-old rookie, Felix Jones probably would have been the man cut if that wasn't the case.
So I want to dive into a couple of points, because there is a lot of people that are using this opportunity to say Justin Fields is not a good quarterback. This is why you should draft an Ohio State quarterback, and this, that, and the third. I understand he's not the most polished quarterback. I think anybody with eyes could see he's not the most polished quarterback. And you know what? You can't expect that from a guy in his second year with minimal weapons. You can't do it. But it's a problem when in the second year, and we are 6 games in, and I have to come out and say, is this truly an evaluation of Justin Fields? Can we actually evaluate him? That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Because
100%.
The fact of the matter is this. We said in the beginning of the year, like you said, this year is all about Justin Fields' development. We do not expect to make the playoffs. We do not expect to win the division. None of that. We don't expect it. But it has to fall on somebody, and it has to fall on what he has around him. I brought up the theory last week that him having Ohio State guys running around the field, which he could throw, he doesn't even need to throw guys open because they just get open all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody expecting guys like Dante Pettis or Equinemius St. Brown or Darnell Mooney to get open on their own? No, it's not a year where you can develop him. You can evaluate him with partial eyes. It just doesn't happen that way. And I know we are so reactionary. Twitter, and they love to rag on people. They love to have their guys on the Summer Jam stage, on a big stage, so they can throw tomatoes at them. That's what they do. This is what NFL fandom has become because of social media, that they don't really watch the games. They look at the box score. They look at what the memes that these sports publications are posting about these people. They are not watching the games. And if people are watching the games, and if they had a clear mind and not looking at, oh, this is a guy in the second year, we're not seeing results, they would see that this is a guy every single play, it felt like he was running for his freaking life on the touchdown he threw to Dante Pettis. He got cracked. He had to make the play. So that's one thing. And another thing that it just it bothers me. It really does. There are people out there that, like, I understand that if you are going to win quarterback, if you're going to win as a quarterback in the NFL, you have to win in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have learned is that Justin Fields has a lot of work to do with being a pocket passer. And
It's not pretty. It's not pretty.
It's not pretty. And you can tell by his throwing motion, you can tell by his happy feet that he just does not feel comfortable in the pocket. Granted, that could be a reflection of the offensive line and the guys just not getting open. However, if you know that as an offensive coordinator, you have to work around that. And I know one thing that I will give Luke Getsy credit is that he has gotten into the habit of getting Fields out the pocket more. The only problem is that on these bootlegs, I'm pretty sure it's designed to not have a free runner every single time. I kid you not. The bootleg is designed for the tight end to hold the block and then go on his route. And literally, you're asking Cole Kmet to hold a block. Tell me, is that not a disaster waiting to happen? So it's a matter of now we have to question that, is it just Luke Getsy or is it just everybody in the Bears organization that just simply does not get this quarterback? They don't get his skill set.
I think it's more the latter than anything. And, it's become a weekly tradition at this point, me sharing really depressing Justin Fields stats. So this one comes from The Athletic. This year, Justin Fields has attempted 22 play action passes and 2 passes with the RPO, right? So that's 24 total. By comparison, Kirk Cousins, 72 play action passes.
Which is hilarious because play action is going to work better with the mobile guys.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cousins is, you want to talk about his intangibles, I guarantee you mobility is at the bottom of the list.
Cinder blocks for feet. He has the same athleticism of, all right, it's better than Brady. I think he's better, moves better than Brady, but not much better. Who doesn't move better than Brady? It's just, it gets infuriating. And because of Minnesota establishes the run game. They have one of the best rushing attacks in the entire NFL.
Yep.
With the duo of Cook and Madison. And then, of course, they have Jefferson and Thielen on the outside. They're able to do that because they have the offensive weapons. I don't know if the Bears just don't think the play action will actually work because they have no threats on the outside. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about it. They have a top 5 rushing attack in football. And I don't feel crazy saying that. Bill Belichick himself said that they're right up there with Cleveland right now for being the best rushing offense in football. Yeah. So I'll take Belichick's word for it. There's one positive about this offense is that they can run the fucking football right down your throat.
Right.
But it's just, do teams just expect to run that much from the Bears at this point that they just don't even respect they just don't respect that the play action could even be a possibility. And I just don't understand how us playing armchair quarterback, I know it's easier said than done. Trust me, I get it. Mm-hmm. Luke Getsy's job is a lot more difficult than any of us want to are led off to believe. I get it. Mm-hmm. But how do you just look at those peripheral stats and not get it? There's just like an overall incompetence with this entire staff. And it's alarming. And then you have the reports coming out. Again, you don't know the validity of these. The reports coming out yesterday that the Bears could be prepared to move on from Fields at the end of this year if they don't see him as the guy. He's not been given the shot to be the guy.
That's the problem. Everybody wants to point the fingers except for look in the mirror and point the finger at the person in the mirror. And the fact of the matter is this. If indeed that's the case, I'm telling you, and I get it, there's a quarterback class that's going to be coming out this year that's going to be pretty damn good. However, This will haunt the Bears more than they already are haunted at the quarterback position. Because if you are going to hold Fields accountable for why this has been an abject failure of a season so far, who are you really holding accountable? Yourself or him? You at the end of the day, Fields did not construct this roster. Fields did not ask for these guys. This is the guys that he was given. And of course, with guys that would struggle to make a roster outside of Darnell Mooney, yeah, they're not gonna play good. They're not. And the offensive line too. I'm gonna say something. And you know what? This reeks of desperation, but it has to happen. I know that this year is about development of the young guys. I don't care at this point. I do not care. You sign Lucas Patrick to be a center, you put his ass at center. Enough is enough with this stuff. And you sign Michael Schofield to be the left guard of this team, put him at left guard. And I'm sorry, I know this, and I went to the metrics to come to this conclusion, but Larry Borom is actually better than Braxton Jones. Sometimes through the eye test, you can't even tell, but you can definitely tell from the right side of the line to the left side of the line, there's a very, very big difference. Mm-hmm. And you can tell Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borom work well together. So I understand that it's probably a pretty fucked up thing to do at the left tackle position. But I think you have to replace Braxton Jones with Riley Reef. And here's the thing. I understand that's damaging to a young guy's psyche, especially with the ceiling that Braxton Jones actually has. But you have to think about like this. I understand you're not going to the playoffs. You don't have the talent for that. But you have to think about the health of your quarterback now. He was limping after the game because he got hit so much. You need to have veteran presence on that offensive line. And if you are not a veteran presence, but you can hold your blocks, you can stay on the line. For Borom and Jenkins, they can stay on the line. But I'm sorry, you cannot have the entire season with Braxton Jones being overwhelmed by guys like Montez Sweat. He's going to face much, much stiffer pass rushers than this going forward. So you might as well, for now, say Riley Reef is going to be our left tackle. Michael Schofield is going to be our left guard. There has to be veteran presence on this team because I'm telling you, this youth movement that they're trying, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Fields is going to get killed this year, and I'll be shocked. I will be shocked if he finishes the year at quarterback. And that pains me to say that because I know how much he gives a shit, and the fact that energy is not being reciprocated from the organization, that hurts me. It really does.
Yeah, and it's not going to be because of a benching either. I mean, I genuinely do not believe this organization is incompetent enough to bench Justin Fields this year. I don't know how he hasn't missed a game yet, just due to wear and tear on his body with how much he's been hit. And it hasn't been cheap hits either. There's been a few hits every week where you look at the screen and you grimace. You cringe, you're like that. It doesn't look good. And I believe it was this past week or twice where he got hit and he stayed down for a second. Yep. And you just know he was thinking to himself, like, holy shit, I have to get up and do this again until that clock strikes zero. It can't be fun. I don't care how much of a competitor you are. It's not fun. And it's just got to suck even more knowing that you're not being set up to succeed when you've played 2 primetime games already this year, and you have your third coming on Monday night against New England in a matchup where it's crazy to say, the 4th-round pick, Fields-Zappe, who's going to be starting at quarterback, has been set up to succeed more than Justin Fields, the 11th overall pick for the Bears. And you're going to have people across the country saying, what are the Bears doing? Why don't they go out and get Zappe? Like, it's just like, I can already picture it. I'm going to be listening to 670 The Score or ESPN 1000 after the game Monday night, driving on Tuesday, whatever it is, to some dumbass caller. Hey, this is Phil from Bridgeport. You know that Zappe guy we saw last night from New England. Let me tell you, what are we doing? 4th-round pick, trade him for Fields. He just showed me a lot more than Fields ever had. We're just going to hear shit like that on sports radio for a week, and it blows my fucking mind. The Bears have to see it coming too.
And the funny thing is, I've already seen the conversations that Fields-Zappe is already he's just a guy that just exudes confidence from his play.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, they're gonna say, oh, let's trade for Zappe. Do people not realize that success is a lot of it is organizational? You tell me that Fields-Zappe would be on any other NFL franchise and he would have that same success. I dare someone to go ahead and lie to me
Mac
that
Jones. Mac Jones was a fucking Pro Bowler as a rookie.
exactly. And you know what? He was probably going to get better until that injury really halted him. So, thing about it is, we are looking at a tale of two organizations. What is good? What is bad? And if you trade a quarterback in a good situation to a bad situation, they're going to turn into a bad situation. That's how this works. As it doesn't have all to do with Fields. It has a lot to do with who is running the show in that organization. Point blank, period. And the funny thing is, going back to the offensive line, right? Now, I know Braxton Jones was the guy left tackle throughout camp and all that. He got rave reviews and whatnot. But now that I think about it, was it not a red flag that a Riley Reed got signed to 2 years?
Yeah. I mean,
Like, no?
it's also an alarming sign too, in my opinion. I understand he came from a smaller school, but the fact that a fifth round rookie was even in the running to start at left tackle week one. I mean, that's a whole different issue. And I don't care how much you impress in camp. It's hard to start as a fifth round rookie.
Absolutely.
And that's also just like you're not setting him up to succeed in that situation because as good as Braxton Jones can be, as much as he believes in himself, as much as this coaching staff believes in himself, jump he's taken in competition level from that FCS level to the NFL. He's playing against the best of the best. I would argue that jump is going to be a lot fucking higher than it was from high school to college for him.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, like tenfold at least. It's the best of the best. You're coming from what is he, Southern Utah State or something like that? I mean, something
like
along
that.
those lines. Yeah, exactly. You're playing against like St. Thomas School for the Blind for all I care at that level of program. But it's just like it's I don't know. It's frustrating because you know for a fact. I mean, you say you're not going to watch a national broadcast. Quite frankly, I don't know if I believe you, but it's going to be really hard to watch them. I'll tell you that much this coming Monday.
No, I will say that me saying that if I see the offensive line is still the same, I'm going to turn away. Probably not, unless the game gets bad. But
fair. No, that's fair.
If there's a 1 o'clock game and the Bears are not televised, I'm gonna go to red zone. I'm not watching that team.
No,
I'm not.
I mean, hey, that's valid. I agree. I do 100% agree on that. So, I mean, heading into Monday night against New England been playing surprisingly well under Fields-Zappe. I mean, shocker, Bill Belichick continues to figure it out. I think he's tied for third all time in coaching wins after this past week. Genuinely, what are your expectations? Because I mean, I know mine are on the floor, so maybe we just reverse jinx it this week and say, they're gonna get blown out. Maybe they'll look competent, but I doubt it. They put up 7 points on the Washington Commanders.
You would think from a long layoff that they've had a time to collect themselves, really come up with a game plan or whatnot. But these are the Chicago Bears that I'm talking about. There's something that's going to be really, really wrong with this game, and it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be a lack of a competent offense. Who knows what the offensive line is going to look like if they're actually going to make changes? And one thing I will say is, if the changes aren't made, that is very much showing me that they are not serious about even trying to win a game this year, win games. Because if you put this offensive line out, there's no way they're going to win any games. And you're not going to win games just running the football. This is not 2004 Okay, this is not 2004. This is the running game, just not going to win you football games like that. So I do think I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but it'll probably be one of those late blowouts where the Bears probably get 9 points off of all field goals, and then Zappe will probably start off high, score touchdowns on 2 straight drives, get a field goal in between, and maybe the score will be like 27-9 is what I'm predicting for the Patriots win, obviously.
God, that's so depressing. But it's honestly not far from the truth because, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson has all. I mean, we didn't mention him at all. He's just looked as good as anyone running the football the last
Yeah.
few, and he was kind of one of those guys that throughout the entire offseason, people around the league were kind of hyping him up. You saw the flashes last year, Damian Harris going down, and he's just stepped up these last 2-3 weeks and looked incredible.
Mhm.
I know that the Bears have been relatively pretty good against the run. They really haven't been gashed by anyone, I would say, other than Saquon and Daniel
Yeah.
Jones, which is crazy to say.
Ridiculous.
But, it's just the Patriots are. I mean, how is an offense being called by Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, 2 guys who have never called offensive plays before, winning football games? That's just, I mean, I'm sure Belichick is honestly probably calling plays if realistically,
Yeah.
but holy shit, man. Like, we are stuck in a cycle of incompetence year after year after year with the Bears. And everyone made fun of the Patriots this offseason. Oh, Patricia and Judge are going to be co-offensive coordinators. Scoring points, moving the football with 4th-round rookie quarterback. And it's just how things go. That's just
And the Bears have exactly what the NFL is looking for: the young white guy that worked with a couple of guys, and it's all just gonna work out. And then we're stuck with this. I will forever say that I think, well, Doug Peterson, he's kind of fizzled out. However, I do think we'd have been better off with Jim Caldwell, and that's saying a lot. And you know what? And you know what? It may not be saying a lot. It may not be saying much either. But I do think that it wouldn't be like this. It would not be like this at all. Offensively, at it, like I'm talking about.
fair. I mean, there's also a clear coach that the Bears whiffed on this offseason.
Yep.
I mean,
we need to talk about it. We
I mean, I'm going to, because moving into just around the league real quick. It's the state of New York is good at football. I mean,
Yep.
who would have fucking thought that the Jets are 3-2 and the Giants are 4-1? Like, it's insane, man. What Brian Dable has been able to do in New York with the likes of everyone on his offense being hurt outside of running back and Daniel Jones. It's just, they beat my Super Bowl pick 24-20. It's just, it blows my mind, man, that Dable has changed the culture in New York this quickly and this effectively.
So Brian Dable, and I had to really think about this, because we talked about he's the runaway for your coach of the year. And I had to think about it. I said Sirianni is definitely going to be in that contention, but Brian Dable might win the coach of the year all for one reason and one reason only. He made the best coordinator hire of the offseason. Wink Martindale has done absolute wonders with that defense, and that was the main reason why I said the Giants were going to beat the Ravens on Sunday. And I mean, a guy, he has a blueprint on Lamar Jackson. He's on the same team as him for many years since his rookie season, so it made perfect sense. So, and the fact of the matter is, both New York teams are winning with the same formula. Their defense, both of their defenses are just amazing. Listen, I knew that the Jets defense was good headed into Lambeau. but they stifled Aaron Rodgers. They stifled him. But it also goes back to my main point of why the Packers are struggling. There is no safety net for Aaron Rodgers anymore, especially when Cobb went out. There was no safety net for Aaron Rodgers. Robert Tonyan was the main guy, had 10 catches on Sunday. But if your tight end, if his name is not Travis Kelce, I'm pretty sure that's not an ideal situation for your offense. And the problem is they don't have the option to have Aaron Rodgers save the day. You have to run the football, and they don't do that. They don't do that well. They have two great running backs that they just don't utilize to the best of their abilities. Ever since that week against Chicago, the Packers have not used their running backs effectively. Yeah. But going back to the tri-state area teams, I have really just not been sold on the Giants because I'm just saying with the talent they have on this team is just simply not enough to, it's just simply not enough to maintain that level of success. But when you are coached well and you are building a culture that everybody's buying into, guess what? Everything else is going to fall in line. And it's just very disgusting that we had to sit through a rebuild while the Giants were basically still in the midst of a rebuild. But one team's at 5-1, one team's at 2-4, and the latter team scored 7 points against Washington, who had one of the worst pass defenses in the league going into Chicago. It's congratulations to them. I do think that things are going to get a little interesting for the Jets. Mostly, the Giants have a very smooth schedule going forward. I do, yeah. And by the way, they're the underdogs going to Jacksonville, which I think is extremely disingenuous because I think that just people are expecting the Giants to just flounder. But in this being the case, come on, like they're the favorites. Let's not kid ourselves. But for the Jets, the key to their success and seeing if Zach Wilson can continue to improve. They have been winning in spite of him. He's not been an issue, but he also hasn't been the reason why they've been winning. Breece Hall has been amazing.
Breece Hall has, I thought he was going to be good this year. But he has surpassed every single expectation. And I had one of my friends say to me the other day, talking about Breece Hall. Yeah, Breece Hall is what everyone, the real Iowa State running back, that was the Frankenstein. You know the David Montgomery picture where he compared every single star running back, giving Montgomery those intangibles. And David Montgomery is very good. He's a very good running back. But Breece Hall, man, is going to be a problem if he stays healthy.
Yeah.
And Robert Saleh, I think that's how you say his name, I believe.
Yeah.
But he said something along the lines, I saw, that this team, they're the youngest team in the NFL, the Jets.
Yeah.
Like the youngest team by far. I think the average age on the team is like 24, 25 or something like that, which is pretty crazy. Zach Wilson has not reached his potential. I still think Zach Wilson's going to be a good NFL quarterback. You have Breece Hall, you have Michael Carter that they can rely on the run game. They have Garrett Wilson. They have, who else might? Braxton Berrios has turned into a good weapon.
He's so good. I wish the Bears would have jumped on him when we had the chance. Elijah Moore.
Corey Davis, Elijah Moore. They have the weapons to be very good for a long time. And you mentioned their defense. Sauce Gardner's already a top 3 to 5 cornerback in the NFL. It's insane. And I know it really reminds me of back in the day with Darrelle Revis, because everyone said, Darrelle Revis, that receiver's going to get lost on Revis Island. People are already saying people are getting lost in the sauce. He is 7 weeks into his NFL career. He's special, man. Like
he's special.
Special.
It is crazy because let's keep something in perspective. He came from the American Conference. I know Cincinnati was a powerhouse when he was there. He came from Cincinnati, and literally the blueprint of what he was doing in Cincinnati, he has seamlessly transitioned that to the NFL. You cannot find many guys that can do that. You cannot. And the fact that he's doing this so early in his career, that's amazing, man. That's amazing. And you know what? His ceiling is he hasn't even reached the ceiling, but he's already an elite cornerback. That's the scary part. And I understand why my Giant friends were so upset that they did not get Sauce Gardner. They got Kayvon, good, but Sauce is that guy, man. He is that guy. He was every bit of worth of that draft pick.
Yep, and as the kids like to say on Twitter, he's hashtag him. But just moving on with this week, the Bills-Chiefs game, it was good. It was a good game.
Yeah.
Not what everyone expected by any stretch of the imagination. But regardless, an impressive win for the Bills, walking into Arrowhead, hanging 24, winning 24-20. The Bills are still the team to beat. I mean, I think that's fair to say. I mean, the team to beat is coming out of the AFC. It is either the Bills or the Chiefs, and I don't feel bad saying that. Tampa Bay has not been good. I mean,
I'm gonna talk about them in a second.
I mean, we can just get into it now. To my point with KC and the Bills was just the fact that outside of those two teams, who really is there at the top right now other than the Eagles? I mean, yes, there's those three, and the league is just mired in mediocrity. I mean, Tampa Bay is lost 20-18 to Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett got hurt. Mitch is better than Kenny, I still think, at this point. But regardless, Mitch Trubisky comes in, and the Steelers, I mean, the Steelers are dog shit. They are not as bad as the level of the Bears and Panthers, but they're in that bottom third easily.
Yeah.
And Tom Brady just has to be asking himself, I really am getting a divorce for this. Like it's just, you have to think he regrets coming back.
100%. And I think we got the clearest view that Tom Brady is not locked into football. I understand Robert Kraft is your friend. You know, you're going to love him forever. He gave you a million opportunities in New England, and y'all made the best of that. But you saying, I'll meet up with y'all in Pittsburgh. I got a way to go to. First of all, shame on Todd Bowles for even allowing that, because I don't give a damn who it is. I don't care who it is. You should not allow anybody on your team to skip out on things that the team, whatever it is, any team events, they should not be skipping that. But you're going to give the excuse to Tom Brady because you feel like he's going to be locked in, so I don't need to worry about him. Well, guess what, Todd? He hasn't been locked in all season. Like, let's be honest. So that's one thing. And number two, the unmitigated goal of Tom Brady to be on the sideline, yelling at his offensive lineman. I mean, you are yelling at your offensive lineman when you literally met up with them on Saturday to miss whatever was going on Friday? Are you kidding me right now? Like, just this is such, like, just, it pisses me off because he has always been a guy that's going to sit up there and go straight to your face and tell you how you play and tell you that you are sucking right now. You are better than this. But I'm sorry, you very much look like a guy that did not prepare, barely even practice, and you just wasn't in the game. But you want to sit there and tell the offensive lineman that they're better than this? My brother, you're the GOAT. You're widely considered the GOAT.
Yeah.
Why are you not playing up to your standards? Why is everybody else around you got to play like all pros, but you could be mediocre? Hey, this is what you came back for. I don't know if it was to stick it to Adam Schefter. I don't know if he just simply cannot stand.
I honestly, I do think it is that. I genuinely think that is the sole reason Tom Brady came back. He had no reason to come. He had no reason to come back.
None.
Off an MVP. He could have retired at 44 years old after winning an MVP. Instead, he comes back at 45. His wife leaves him, and it's just like I don't know. I don't get it. And I am as big of a Tom Brady fan as it gets, but I'm just at a point where I'm just like what is going on in his head? I'm perplexed, and it's not getting any better in Tampa Bay anytime soon.
And the thing is, the Buccaneers are going to make the playoffs because luckily the NFC South is absolutely dreadful. I don't expect the Falcons to keep winning. The Panthers are an absolute just
I mean,
dumpster fire of an
it,
organization at the
it's
moment.
gross.
And my Super Bowl pick, the Saints, I mean, just combined with bad play and everybody being hurt, they are not going to be a threat to anybody in that division. So they're going to win by default. And they're going to play in the wild card round. They're going to run maybe into the New York Giants, maybe the Dallas Cowboys, maybe the Green Bay Packers, maybe the Minnesota Vikings, and they're going to get stomped. They're going to get stomped. They're not a good football team right now. Obviously, it's about to be week 7. We have a long way to go. We still got to see who is the contenders and who's the pretenders. But just off of what we have seen so far from Tampa Bay, it's how do we know that things are going to get better before they get even more worse?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that. We honestly don't know that. And considering what has been around this team with Tom Brady clearly not being locked in and clearly putting football second in his mind, how are things going to get better? How are they going to get better for Tampa Bay? They don't have an easy schedule. Things are going to get a little rough for them. So right now, I'm not going to sit here and say Tom Brady's legacy is going to be tarnished off this one season, but considering he has gone against the grain with everything that's made him great,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a stain on him. And granted, it may be nitpicking for a lot of people, but it's just embarrassing what's happening considering you're not locked in, but yet you're going to tell people how to be locked in. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, no, I mean it's the truth. It is the unadulterated truth. They're gonna figure it out. They are. When? I don't know. So it's gonna be really interesting to see because they're playing Carolina this week, which I mean it should be a get right spot. I mean it should be, and if this game's even close, I think that's when Tampa finally panics. But we'll just have to wait and see. But
now, when you say panic, does that mean making that particular phone call?
does that particular phone call involve a wide receiver?
Not a wide receiver, but a goofy ass tight end.
Oh man, I was not even thinking him, but probably.
Maybe, probably. I know he's back on Fox now, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I think if things get bad or stuff gets, if they even close with Carolina, then yeah, maybe they would make that phone call.
I think it'd be that or a certain wide receiver who is coming off a torn ACL because the other veteran wide receiver they signed this offseason, shocker, can't stay on the field.
Yep, I don't know what the hell they expected. I really don't.
But we'll see. We will see. But moving into what feels like the first time we've talked about this in a while on this show, college football, coming off of one of the best weekend slates we've had in quite some time. I mean, off the top, just want to give it to you. Michigan curb stomps Penn State. I mean, I thought the spread of 7 was completely disrespectful with how these two teams have been playing. I mean, I know Penn State has been solid, but when Shane Clifford, when he is your quarterback, Sean Clifford. When Sean Clifford is your quarterback, I mean, he has been as dog water as it gets in the Big Ten at quarterback for the last few years. And I don't know how Penn State, a program at Penn State's caliber, does not have another quarterback on their roster or someone in the transfer portal who wants to come in who can be better than him. I don't understand it. But Blake Corum, I mean, dominant.
let me tell you something.
Dominant.
Before I go into Michigan, Drew Aller, the guy who came in after Sean Clifford, I believe he left with an injury. He is so clearly more confident and more willing to throw the football more than Sean Clifford, to the point where Penn State has two really good freshman running backs, and they relied heavily on them and the running game throughout the entire game until they realized they needed to start throwing to keep pace with Michigan's ground game. But it leads you to wonder, with Jim Harbaugh out of the woods in terms of not winning big games, James Franklin has got to take that mantle now.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about a guy who doesn't show up in big games, has never been a team inside the top 10, and now he has not done well at the quarterback position. And I said it on Twitter, Drew Aller might be the last resort for James Franklin to develop a good quarterback in order for him to keep his job. Because at what point is Penn State going to continue to struggle, beat up on the bad teams of the Big Ten, but once they reach the Michigans, the Ohio States, maybe Illinois, who's the most likely going to beat them this year if they're on the schedule, or Maryland. I mean, it's going to get rough for them. It's going to get rough for him. So you have to think. He has Drew Aller on the roster. He's a young guy, most likely going to start next year, which, by the way, before Ohio State comes to town, he should be the starting quarterback. Sean Clifford's not going to win you that game. He's not going to get you close to that game.
Yeah.
But at what point does Penn State say, enough of this? We are a program that's been consistently good in the 2010s. Being Ohio State, being Michigan a couple of times. When are we going to be among those two? Because it's Ohio State, Michigan, and then everybody else. Penn State is supposed to be that third team. Now they have got down to the everybody else category. They're not that good. And I knew it going into the game. They're not that good. But Michigan absolutely exposed them. Speaking of Michigan, you want to talk about a tandem that is absolutely ridiculous. Penn State, going into this year, I believe they was in the 250 rushing yards category in terms of how much rushing yards they've allowed. Michigan ran for over 400 yards. I'm not sure if that's a reflection of the defensive line of Penn State, which I heard was pretty good, or Michigan's offensive line just simply did not miss a beat from last year. Maybe they're just that good. And honestly, sometimes that's what it takes. I know people are upset that JJ has not been unleashed yet. I get it. I want to see JJ McCarthy being unleashed.
The thing is, he hasn't needed to be.
He hasn't needed to be. That's the key. But when it gets down to a rivalry game like Michigan State that's coming up next weekend, when you have to play Illinois eventually, when you're going to have to play Ohio State, the clip has to be unloaded for JJ McCarthy. But if you don't need to, don't do it.
Why? I know. I'm with you.
Don't do it.
I mean, I'm with you, man. I am 100% with you. So, I mean, you mentioned it, but Illinois football and Illinois basketball right now are both ranked simultaneously for the first time since 2002.
That sounds about right.
No, it does. But Illinois grad here. My 4 years there, I saw Lovie Smith put dog shit football on the field. I saw Brett Bielema last year, uninspired football, but the turnaround that he's been able to get out of this roster in 2 years. I mean, 2 years, if we're being honest, it looks like the Wisconsin Badgers of old, the style of football they're playing right now. They have the number one defense.
Very good comparison.
The number one defense in the country. Number one. It has been fucking incredible. On top of that, they have the number one rusher in the country in Chase Brown.
That boy nice.
Oh, he is.
He's nice.
Chase Brown also loves my dog. Lived in the same building as me last year. No big deal. But there's some special things going on in Champaign right now. I mean, it has not been fluke wins either. They went into Madison. They won by 24. They beat Iowa in 96. Okay. But like, that's just That's Big Ten football. I mean,
Sounds like I will give
it is
me.
what it is. I mean, that is what it is. But they beat Minnesota, who a good Minnesota team, in my opinion. I think Minnesota's a good team.
Yeah, they are.
26-14. And then you have Nebraska on the schedule this week, Michigan State, Purdue, which hardest game on that schedule, if we're being honest, might be Nebraska with how they've been playing these last few weeks, which is crazy to say.
I would not even be worried. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Oh, no, I'm not. But November 19th, the fact that that game is even going to mean something potentially between Michigan and Illinois, you could have told me 2 weeks ago that game was going to mean something, and I wouldn't have believed you.
Yep.
I wouldn't have. And there are currently 7 teams in college football who have mathematically not been eliminated from the college football playoff yet. Illinois and Michigan are 2 of them.
That is crazy.
With Ohio State being the other. And then it is, I believe, Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. And the 7th, I believe, is, or maybe it's more than 7, because I remember Wake Forest was still on the list, as well as
Clemson
and USC. So maybe it was 10. Maybe it was 10. But regardless, the fact that Illinois is sitting at number 18 right now even has a % chance at winning the college football playoff right now is asinine. I mean, they were a bullshit penalty flag away from Indiana from being undefeated right now.
Yeah.
And this is not meant to turn into an Illinois football discussion. I just can't believe that November 19th, Michigan, Illinois is going to mean something.
And it really means, like, it honestly annoys me. I'm not gonna lie.
I get it. Damn. I get it.
It's like, damn, if it went from all we got to do is get past Michigan State to be undefeated going into Ohio State. Now we got to worry about Illinois as well. And here's the thing, like, I know Michigan State is not that good of a football team this year. I know we are better than Michigan State. But Michigan State just has that devil.
It's that little brother syndrome, man. I mean, it happens with all these different programs. I mean, whether it's, Texas Tech, they're always going to. Texas Tech's always going to play their best game. UCLA, USC, as crazy as that sounds, UCLA is always going to show up and try and blow the doors off of USC. I mean, you can go on and on and on. Auburn, Alabama,
Army and Navy.
Exactly. I mean, it's just one of those games.
Yeah, I'm nervous about that game. I'm nervous. I know people are going to tell me I shouldn't. If Michigan's better, it's going to be under the lights. I'm nervous about that game. I'm nervous. I mean, you talk about a team last year that held the lead. It was a 30-14, and we ended up losing the game. So yeah, nervous. We're nervous as hell.
Yeah, and Big Ten is, it's still wide open, which is just insane to say heading into the end of October. Yeah. I mean, realistically, 3 teams can win it right now. I mean, realistically, it's 2. Mathematically, it's 3. But that's an argument for a different day. But I digress. There's 2 other games I want to quickly mention. USC lost to Utah on the road 43-42. Everyone has been saying that USC is going to make the playoff this year. I never believed it, just because I knew they were going to be good. I genuinely thought they were going to be a good team. But I don't care. It's a first-year head coach at a new program with a shit ton of transfers. You're not gonna make a playoff with that under any circumstances, regardless of how many guys came from the coach's old program. I looked at beginning of the year, when I looked at USC's schedule, I picked them to lose 1 game in the regular season. And it was this week at Utah, because you just don't win in Utah. You don't.
You're not. Nope. Never. Nope. Mm-mm.
And I mean, Utah's always going to be that thorn in the side of every Pac-12 team, and
every single one.
Not a bad place to be because they're a respected program across the country. Both these teams are going to make a New Year's Six bowl, I'm sure, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Utah and USC, we'll see. But the real game that I want to talk about is in the SEC. Tennessee has beaten Alabama for the first time in, I think it was 16 years.
I believe so. 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Either one.
Game of the year.
By far.
Undoubtedly game of the year. And Alabama did not play their best game by any stretch of the imagination. They just played undisciplined football. They had over 100 penalty yards. I mean, the writing was on the wall for Tennessee for a while there, where they got out to the big lead. You saw the lead slipping away to end the half. And as someone who despises Alabama, has bet a ridiculous amount of money on Tennessee the last few years, just because you always find your way back to a few different teams. And Tennessee, for me, just always happens to be one of those teams. And you're just watching, you're like, oh, great. Here we go. Here we go. But every moment of that game was exciting. Tennessee was able. Their defense deserves all the credit in the world. I don't care that they gave up 40-something points. I genuinely don't care, because when your offense is on the field for as little time as they are, that defense is going to be fucking gassed, man.
Yep.
And they're playing about as much of grown men as you're going to play in college football at Alabama. I've been seeing it everywhere. It feels like 98 in Knoxville, man.
And there's just those certain teams that when they're good, college football is just so damn exciting. Tennessee is in that same realm as Miami and Notre Dame, even though you hate Notre Dame. Florida State.
No, absolutely.
They're in that realm. And the fact that they pulled off that win, it's just like the tide is changing. And I'm not saying entirely the tide is changing, because I do think that once Hendon Hooker leaves, there's going to be very much a transition, because Hendon Hooker has been the most transcendent talent going through Tennessee since Peyton Manning has been there at quarterback. They have not had a talent.
So goddamn good.
He is amazing. And remember, going into last year, it was Michigan transfer Joe Milton that was the quarterback of Michigan. And ever since Hendon Hooker took over, he has changed Tennessee completely. And him and Jalen Wyatt, I'm telling you, Tennessee has a chance to do something special. Now, we have to reserve this, because November 5th, I'm not sure if I'm going to be at the Michigan game against Rutgers, or am I going to be at home. But I looked at the schedule. I'm like, yo, Michigan and Rutgers are playing. I think I want to go to that game. But then I saw Tennessee and Georgia play probably at 3:30, probably the primetime CBS game that's going to be on at 3:30.
College game day again.
God, it's going to be a college game day. And I'm just like, damn, I might have to be home to watch that game. I just might. That's going to be, I know we talked about Georgia, not Georgia, Alabama and Tennessee being the game of the year. While everybody loves the high scoring games and stuff like that, Georgia and Tennessee is what I'm going to call grown ass man football. And I need to see that game. And that is going to have massive, and I mean massive, implications on a college football playoff. Now, let's just say Michigan and Ohio State are still undefeated going into November 5th. I think you may want to root for Georgia in that game. If Tennessee wins that game, they're the undisputed number one. They have 2 quality wins, and then you have the Ohio State and Michigan, who's most likely going to be, not most likely, I don't know yet. You maybe go undefeated into that week. Now, at least a scenario where now the biggest game of the year is going to be Michigan versus Ohio State, because let's just say that there is a floundering with one of the 3 SEC teams that can still very well much get into college football playoff. There could be a scenario where Michigan and Ohio State could play 2 times this year this
Yeah.
time for the playoffs. So you probably want to root for Tennessee going into November 5th. But we shall see. And you know what? This stuff like this is why the playoffs should not be expanded, because every game
Amen.
is going to mean something. And if you're a team that has lost 1 or 2 times, you're gonna be like, oh, we still got a chance at the playoff. We can still make some magic. No, I don't want that. I don't want that. I want the 4 best teams playing for the title, because it means so much more when it's just those 4 teams and they work their entire season to get to that point. So let's enjoy it while we have it, because the format's going to be screwed up in a couple of years.
Amen. Couldn't think of a better way to put it. And as we wrap up the show, I just want to remind everyone that I did, in fact, place a $25 bet on Hendon Hooker to win the Heisman preseason, $25 to win $1,000. And he is currently the second highest odds to win the Heisman right now. So I've never felt like a better gambler in my entire life. I am not a good gambler, but if I get that cash out option, you best believe it's being cashed out and more of that money is being put on him to win the Heisman.
I'll say this. Right now, he's my Heisman front runner. I know CJ Stroud's been amazing. I know Blake Corum's been good. I know Dorian Thompson-Robinson has been good. But Hendon Hooker had his, at this moment, he's at his Heisman moment.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Tennessee football would not be where they're at right now without Hendon Hooker. You could make the argument that Ohio State would still be pretty damn good without CJ Stroud. I mean, I don't even think you have to make an argument. If we're being honest with, there's 3 NFL receivers on that offense.
Yep.
There's no denying how good he is, though. CJ Stroud is a damn good college football player. Blake Corum, incredible. Caleb Williams is still in that Heisman mix. As much as you want it, as much as people may or may not agree, I don't know. But considering I got Hendon Hooker at plus 4,000 to begin the year, and he is currently plus 425 behind CJ Stroud at plus 110, I will take it because it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been a fun $25, so I will take it. But with that being said, it's going to wrap up this week's show. Hopefully we're discussing just a little bit more positive on the Chicago Bears next week. Probably not, but until then, you will hear our negativity next week. Thank you for watching the show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.